Hello and welcome to Amanda's Wellbeing Podcast, a podcast where we discuss all things relating to your well-being, including interviews with experts in the fields of nutrition, physical and mental health, and my 5-minute food facts series. I'm Amanda Hayes, your host, a nutritionist with a passion for well-being. Today's podcast is a short wrap-up of the Yurrebilla 56km ultramarathon that I did on the weekend. Here I am at the start of the Yurrebilla 56 ultra run. It's really cold and rain is predicted and I'm really nervous. I'll check in.
Good luck to everybody, have a great run. We'll see you at the other end.
Are you? Oh, good.
10,
Yeah, okay.
9, 8,
All right,
7,
thank you.
6,
Thanks, Glenn.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay. Have a great day out there. Be safe.
Hi there. Today I want to talk to you about the Yurrebilla 56km ultra that I ran on the weekend. For those of you that don't know, an ultra marathon is anything longer than a marathon. So anything over 42.2 Ks is considered an ultra marathon. So the course is in South Australia. It's in the eastern hills region of Adelaide. So it basically runs through the Mount Lofty Ranges. And during the course of the race, you climb 1,865 metres and descend 2,060. So it's pretty hilly and there's some pretty steep ascents in there by Australian terms, I guess. In particular, right near the end, about the 50k mark, you hit a hill called Black's Hill, and that is very tough. I don't actually know what the gradient is, but it by that stage your legs are screaming, so it feels pretty hard. So in the lead up to the ultra, so for about July, August, so about 3 or 4 months of training, I was already starting from a pretty good base because I'd just done the half Ironman. So I then switched over to mainly running. In a typical week, I would do about 3 or 4 runs. On Sunday, I'd do a long run, and that progressively got longer, well, supposedly did. And then I'd do 2 or 3 other runs, and they might be a tempo run or a hill run. And sometimes one of those runs might just be a recovery run if I'd done a long run on the Sunday. And I would also do one spin class a week with my dad, because I just love to do that and like to have coffee with my dad afterwards. And I would go to the gym and do some strength work. Ideally, I should have probably done that twice a week, but it tended to usually just be once. Anyway, it was enough to get me to the start line. And Nick Muxlow, who did my program for the half Ironman, also did my program for this Yurrebilla race. Plus, I have done this race before, so I knew what to expect. So I would have to say my lead up to this race was not ideal. I had a few just things happening in life, that sort of took my attention away from training a few times, and I often felt quite exhausted. I don't exactly know why, but I cut short a few of my long runs. So for the first time, really, for me, lining up at the start line of something like this, I really wasn't sure whether I was going to actually make it. But anyway, I guess the fact that I'd done it before was a huge help, because it made me realise that, I can actually do it. So on the day, it was pretty wet and cold. The first time it rained heavily, I took out my running rain jacket, which is an old one I shoved into my running pack the morning of the race, and I put that on, and that was quite helpful. But the next few times it rained, I couldn't be bothered sort of stopping and taking my pack off and getting the coat out and all of that, so I didn't bother putting it on again, and I just got wet. And the trouble with that is, because it's cold, you sort of even though you're hot from the running, you're actually sort of cold on the outside. So you feel it's not ideal. Anyway, first world problems, hey? My nutrition was good. I mainly had gels. Essentially, I would have 2 gels an hour. That gave me enough carbohydrate to get through the race. And I started taking those on at the 30-minute mark. A few times for a bit of variation, I took some food from the excellent aid stations. They had bananas and all sorts of things, but I just stuck to snakes and bananas because I know that I can run with those. And towards the end, I had packed myself a Vegemite sandwich. So I had that because you do get a bit sick of those gels after hours on end. So I think overall, I did the race in 7 hours and 50 minutes. And I was pretty happy with that. The last time I did it in 7 hours and 14 minutes. That's my phone dinging, which is obviously significantly better, but I'd had a better lead up and I was 4 years younger. So I was pretty happy with that because I'd set myself the goal of finishing in around 8 hours. So to come in under that, I was pretty pleased. And in my age group, I came 5th in the old ladies group. So that was not a bad result. And the way I got through it really was because I knew I didn't have quite the amount of fitness that I really wanted, I basically just took it slowly right from the get-go. I set myself a sort of a consistent pace and I just kept plodding along at that pace, and that worked well for me. My legs got pretty sore around the 4-hour mark. I started to feel it quite a lot. My knees were sore from all the descending, so that's something I need to work on for next time. Overall, I think I would say for me, this probably varies for everybody, but I would say it was harder than doing the half Ironman simply because you're just doing one thing the whole time, so your muscles get no relief. At least in the half Ironman, you're changing, from the swim to the ride to the run. So although it is still very hard, you are using your muscles in a different way. So I just didn't feel quite so beaten up at the end of the half Ironman compared to how I felt yesterday when I stepped over the line. My whole body was aching, and even if I touched the top of my arm like that, even that would hurt, even though I hadn't probably really used that much. So it's kind of interesting, but overall it's a beautiful race. The scenery is amazing. You see koalas, and you don't really see kangaroos because they've probably hopped away hearing all those people going before me. And it's just such an Australian landscape with beautiful yellow wattles and gum trees and shrubs, and it really is stunning. And if you focus on that, you're going to have a good day out. And I think for me, knowing that I'd finished it before was a huge mental boost, because even when I started hurting around 4 hours, I just had the feeling that, yeah, I know I can get through this. I can do it. It's going to be hard, but I can do it. So I just really focused my energy on that and looked around and just tried to take in the scenery and just think, wow, this is really amazing to be out here. And it's so amazing that there are so many hundreds of people that are fit enough to run a race like this and show up when it's cold and miserable. So overall, I really loved it. And this is my certificate. Plus, the picture of me in the beginning is wearing the medal. You do get a pretty nice medal for doing these races. So, that's a nice little thing to have. Anyway, thanks for listening. I'd love to hear if anyone watching this has also done the Yurrebilla or another ultra or something similar, and how they found it and how they got through it and the training they did. So please contact me. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to that. You can subscribe to Amanda's Wellbeing Podcast on YouTube. hit the subscribe button, and while you're there, click on the bell to be alerted when new episodes are available. You can also subscribe on your favourite podcast app, including iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, Spotify, or Google Podcasts. And you can follow the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Direct links to all social media can be found on the subscribe page of my website at www.amandaswellbeingpodcast.com. If you would like to contact me, you can send me a message via the contacts page on my website. Please feel free to suggest topics you'd like to learn more about and people you'd like to hear interviewed, and I'll do my best to deliver that to you. Producing the podcast is a labour of love. We put in a lot of time, money, and effort behind the scenes. So if you enjoy Amanda's Wellbeing Podcast and would like to make a contribution via Patreon, PayPal, or by Amazon to help ensure that we continue to provide you with excellent content, please visit the Contribute page on my website. Finally, please take a minute to leave a rating on iTunes. It improves visibility and will help me source excellent guests. Thank you for tuning in. Eat well, move well, think well.